Hello, welcome to Overcome a Mental Health podcast. I'm your host, Travis White. This is a place for you to share your mental health stories. Tonight, I'm speaking with Sheri Arcuria, founder of MOBA, Master of Badassery, certified hypnotherapist, and NLP practitioner. Sheri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Travis. I'm really looking forward to being here.
Yeah, well, the pleasure is all mine. I think we're going to have a great conversation. You have a lot of insight to offer the guests of the show, so without wasting any time, I'm just going to turn the microphone over to you.
With no pressure whatsoever.
No pressure.
None at all. Okay, so I'm Sheri. I have an apparel brand called Master of Badassery. The acronym is MOBA. We've also built an incredible community of people who are all like-minded and wanting to utilize the best of mindset. And mindset was something that I don't think I ever knew what it was for many years. There wasn't a term for it. It's just something that I've always utilized I became a certified hypnotherapist back in my 20s, and just the idea of how the subconscious brain works and how putting out good thoughts will manifest into good things. And I've just kind of utilized that idea like my entire life in different aspects, whether it was from my weight loss journey to overcoming obstacles or having, like we can all relate to, when the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and you don't think that you can make it through. I've had bouts of depression in the past, but just situational based on, life doesn't go the way that it's supposed to go. And over time, it was this idea of mindset that has pulled me out of it every single time. And so being able to create a community of people knowing you're not alone, whatever you're going through, there's always a solution. You can always adapt to it. You can always overcome it. And it's become one of the greatest things that I've ever done for myself, for sure.
It's awesome. I love to hear it. I'd love for you to take us to the beginning of MOBA, that moment where you realized something had to change and how you created the brand.
So it's actually an interesting story. So if you remember, I don't know if you remember March of 2020 when the world just stopped for
Stop.
everyone.
Yes.
And it wasn't just in your little town, the entire world was brought down to its knees. And as we all offices closed instantly, everything shut down. I was in California, so we were the first ones to completely shut down everything, stores. I couldn't work. And after only 3 days of binging like 6 shows on Netflix and going to the fridge every single hour, I was somebody that used to be over 350 pounds. And that fear and that the stress started, I had a full-blown panic attack. We had no idea how long this was going to last. So I started trying to be proactive, and I started every time we had to go and find toilet paper, which was scarce in March, April of 2020. Every time I would go to find toilet paper, I would ask if they were hiring. Put me out there. I can't sit at home and do nothing. I have to be proactive. And I ended up getting a part-time job at a Walgreens. And number one, I forgot what it was like to work retail. It had been like 20 years since I worked retail, and to work retail in the middle of a worldwide pandemic is not something I would highly recommend. Because if you've ever been in customer service, you're going to deal with your share of angry customers. But when 100% of your customers are angry, I realized it was actually causing more issues to mental health than what I was hoping was going to come from it. And it was getting to the point where people were mad at me because there was no thermometers, there was no sanitizer, there was no this, and I was getting yelled at on a daily basis. And on one hand, I was like, I didn't need this job at the moment. I was doing this because I wanted to do something good, and I was on the verge of quitting. But there was one night I'll never forget. I was working at the register, and I realized I had 2 options. I can keep complaining, or I can do something about it. And there was a man that came to the register. He had a mask on, his head was down, and I was ringing him up. And you could tell he kind of had a hint of an attitude because the sanitizer we had didn't have the correct percentage of alcohol that he was hoping for. And I said, you know what? Hypothetically, everything's open tomorrow. The restaurants are open. Where are you taking me for dinner? And he looked up and he was annoyed as crap. And he goes, what? And I was like, abort mission, abort mission. And I was like, no, I'm committed. I said, you know what? Hypothetically, everything's open tomorrow. The restaurants are open. Where are you taking me to dinner? And he actually thought about it. And he said Maria's, which was a Mexican joint down the street. And I was like, oh my God, Maria's. Like, I love their fajitas. It's my favorite thing. And then all of a sudden, the conversation was turning to Taco Tuesday, and it was talking about margaritas. And by the time he left, he had a mask on, but I could tell he was smiling. I could see it in his eyes. His whole entire demeanor changed. And it was almost like this was probably like in June of 2020. It was like for the first time that he realized this is going to end at some point. We might not know when, but at some point it's going to be over. And he left. And I kind of thought about it and I was like, maybe it's a fluke. But the rest of the night, every single time that somebody came to the register, I asked them the same question. Where are you taking me for dinner? Everything's open. Then it was turning into sushi restaurants. It was turning into the little cafe down the street. And one by one, every single person's attitude changed. It was like they were no longer living in fear. In that single moment, there was hope. And it was like focusing on the good that's going to be on the other side of this. And I came home that night and I felt like a badass. I was like, I changed opinions that night. I changed their attitude. And at the time I told my husband, I was like, I was a master of badassery tonight. Like, it was amazing. And it was something I used to say as a phrase, like for years. Like, if I fixed the garbage disposal, I'm a master of badassery. I BS my way through a college paper. I was a master of badassery. And this time he said, you should put it on a shirt. And I was like, no one's going to buy that. And he goes, you never know. And I was like, you never know. So I know nothing about the clothing industry. I know nothing about the fashion, but I decided to go about finding a way to create a logo. And I created a logo and figured out how to put it on a t-shirt. And by December of 2020, we had our first t-shirts being made. And it was just as a way to kind of just promote positivity and promote like thinking about the bigger picture. And you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. You just have to believe that it's going to be different in your favor. And then ever since then, like I said, it started with a little t-shirt, and now we have shirts, we have hats, we have beanies, we have bags, and then it turned into I was on social media, promoting it on social media, and there became a following, and we started doing workout challenges on lives, and we would do push-up challenges or wall sits, and one by one, I was watching people who were in a wheelchair that were doing a plank from their little wheelchair to the point where all of a sudden they were doing a wall sit with us. I was watching people who were once on oxygen and they had the belief that they weren't going to be on oxygen anymore. And then months go by and they're doing a wall sit for the first time in their lives. And it was like watching people in real time accomplish things that they never thought possible because someone told them it's possible if you believe in it and you put the work in. And now we have an entire community of people who are just, beasting through crap and utilizing mindset in every aspect. It's not just fitness, it's in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, that's super cool that you were able to make that connection with people, because I can remember I've worked retail. I didn't work retail during the pandemic at all. And
Don't do it.
I would have never wanted to, But I think it's cool because you didn't see a lot of that connection during that time. I still think we're still recovering from that time.
I agree. I think one of the things I had to understand too is they were not angry at me as Sheri. Like, they weren't mad
Yeah.
at me personally. It was just projected towards me. And I think oftentimes, like, the hardest part with communication with people is that people are communicating from their emotional state that they're in currently. And oftentimes we think it's about us on the receiving end, but it's not. And when I looked back, they were scared. Some of those
Mm-hmm.
people were leaving their house for the first time because they finally ran out of stuff. They were terrified of going home and not being able to come back, or their loved ones are, passing away. And we had no idea if this was ever going to end. And so in hindsight, I realized, okay, they weren't mad at me, but it was like, but when you're around negative people like that, it affects you negatively. And then
Mm-hmm.
it puts you and it becomes, um, very it just spreads like wildfire. And so during that time I was like trying to, and I don't know if you remember, but like people were fighting on social media. People were ending relationships. They were breaking up with family members because of the side of the fence you were on an
Yep.
opinion. And watching this negative trajectory of people, like we had so much hate and so much anger, misdirected anger, that I started going online and posting positive stuff, or I would find like a local business and I would give them a highlight. And when I was working on the logo, I would go online. I'm like, hey, meet Tom. Tom is a small business owner and he's a badass because he's still showing up for himself every single day. And I started highlighting people in the community as a way to just have like this glimmer of positivity and focus on the good in the world. And over time, it started spreading like wildfire. Those people, they were on cloud nine that somebody recognized them. And then all of a sudden they would make posts and they would shout out somebody else. And it was creating like this avalanche of positivity in the attempts of trying to overthrow, this scary time that we were in.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that you're making people feel like, that basically they're a badass, that they have more to them than what's going on in the world around them.
Absolutely. I'm also like, I tell people I'm very nauseatingly positive, so just be prepared.
So I love it because, and my wife will tell me everybody this. I'm pessimistic, just me.
Okay.
So I'm the opposite. Like I try to be more optimistic, and I think since I've been doing this podcast, it's made me more optimistic because I hear all these stories and how these people change. So I'm like, oh, like I actually have a lot to be grateful for. There's a lot of good in my life.
Absolutely. My mom used to she had this famous phrase. She would say, keep telling yourself that. So if you said, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this, keep telling yourself that. The more you keep telling yourself, like, it's whether you're right or wrong, you're going to be right every single time. If you believe that you can't do that, if you believe that the other shoe is going to drop, it's going to happen. You're putting it out there. So it was to the point my mom would say it so many times, it would annoy the crap out of me. And I find myself as an adult going, all right, mom, you're right. And now I tell people when they're like, oh, yeah, I can't do a wall sit. All right, keep telling yourself that. Let me know how that works out for you.
Love it. It's like you do have to be consistent, like in the
You
things that
have
you do,
to.
like, or else it doesn't work.
Yeah, like the one thing that we're guaranteed in life is change, whether we want it or not. The pandemic was a perfect example. It didn't matter how much money you had, what your education was, where you lived, everybody was affected the same way. And so we're always going to have two options. We can live in the pessimism or we can live in the negativity and why me? Why is this happening to me? Or we can think about why not me? This is an opportunity for us to find our strength. This is an opportunity for us to conquer something. This is an opportunity for us to show how strong we can really be. And the more that you start looking at it that way, the more you start welcoming these quote unquote blind sides that happen in life. And you're like, all right, universe or God or whatever it is you believe in, I see what you're doing here. All right, let's see what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of start going into something there, like why me? So
Hmm.
I'd refer to that as self-sabotaging.
Hmm.
What how do you help people recognize that they are self-sabotaging?
I ask a lot of questions. So when somebody says that they can't do something, I go, why? Well, because of finance. I guess a perfect example is if somebody says, I can't lose weight, because a lot of people in the MOBA community are people who are on a weight loss journey. So that's usually a running theme with people. Well, I can't work out. Well, why can't you work out? Well, because I don't have money for a gym membership. Why do you need a membership to the gym? Well, because, they have machines and stuff. I said, okay, but do you have two legs? Like, do you have any like physical ailments? There's always stuff that you can do at home. And it's gotten to a point where it's almost a game. The more people give me excuses, the more it just spurs me on to find a solution to adapt. And I remember there was a woman who had reached out to me and she's like, I can't walk, because she was very obese. She was looking to have the surgery, but she wasn't there yet. And she's like, my husband has to drop me off at the front door to walk to the front. I can't walk more than, a couple minutes. And she's like, I can't lose weight. And I said, oh, so what do you do? And she goes, well, I sit at home all day. And I was, okay, can you walk for 30 seconds? And she like rolls her eyes like, well, yeah, I can do 30 seconds. Then do 30 seconds. That's 30 seconds more than you were doing before. And I said, if after 30 seconds you have it in you to do a little bit more, then great. But if not, you committed to 30 seconds. And then if you feel later in the day to set a timer for 30 seconds, then see what happens. I said, but the point is, I'd rather you do 1% than to do absolutely nothing and keep yourself behind. And she sent me a message about a month and a half later. She was up to 3 minutes, 3 times a day. And she was so elated. I'm like, all it took is like, we have this all or nothing mentality. We feel like we have to go big or go home. And I'm total culprit of that all the time. But sometimes when you have this go big or go home mentality, you psych yourself out. It becomes too overwhelming to try, and then you do nothing. I'd rather you do a portion of it or a little piece of it and be consistent than to do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I had to learn because I always thought it was go big or go home until
Hmm.
I started going to therapy. And he's like, no, take the small steps. Like
Hmm.
even if you're going one step forward and three steps back, you're still taking a step forward in the right direction.
Absolutely. And
So
every time you're knocked down, take a step forward every single
yeah,
time.
yeah, but and that the story you just told, those are like the types of transformation stories that I absolutely love. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Trying to think of, I had it in my mind. Now let me remember my thought.
You're good.
I'm going to go kind of towards hypnotherapy because I think this is a cool subject.
Okay.
How did hypnotherapy support you on your journey?
So honestly, it was because we don't really understand how powerful our subconscious brain is. And to put it like in very, very basic terms, you have your conscious brain and your subconscious brain. Your conscious brain can only handle one thought at a time. So you and I are talking, we're focusing what each other are saying to each other, and then that's it. Whereas your subconscious mind, I kind of describe it as this 24/7 computer that records everything, every sense, every sound, smell, taste, everything. So while you are talking consciously, our subconscious brain is listening to the background noises, whatever's in our peripherals, the things that we're not thinking about, it records that. And so we don't realize how powerful our words are and our thoughts are, even if we're having them to ourselves. So, for instance, I'm trying to think of like a really good example, but like the subconscious brain, a perfect example is when, because I use weight loss a lot because I have a lot of people in the weight loss community. So when somebody says, I want to lose weight, I'm trying to lose weight. Well, subconsciously, what happens every time you lose something since you were a kid? You lost your socks, you lose your cell phone, you lose your car keys. You actively, frantically go to search and find them. So every time we are losing weight, how many times do we lose 10 pounds? We gain 20. We lose 10 pounds, we gain 20. It's because we're teaching our subconscious is recognizing, oh crap, she lost weight. We have to go find it like quickly. And then you gain the weight. It can take me 2 weeks to lose 3 pounds, and then overnight I can gain it back, you know? And so it's about retraining your brain on how to talk to yourself. Instead of saying, I want to lose weight, I am releasing weight. I am getting rid of toxins in my body. Like when you find a way to reframe your vocabulary and certain things, it's amazing how much differently things around you start to fall into place to get to the goals that you want. So when people say, I want to lose weight, no, we're releasing it. We ain't finding that crap again. And like you can use that to a ton of different like examples, but in working on your vocabulary, your self-talk, I can't do this. I can't do that. I am not good enough for this. I am not pretty enough for that. I am not thin enough for this. The more that you keep telling yourself that, your subconscious it believes it as true. Our subconscious doesn't know the difference between fact and fiction. So if you keep telling yourself that, your subconscious is going to believe it, and then your body and everything around you is going to start reacting to live up to what it's being told. So once you start talking to yourself differently, talking to outside of you differently, it's kind of amazing how differently things around you start to fall into place the way that you want it to. And it's not magic. It's just the thing with hypnotherapy is I tell people you spend your whole life dehypnotizing people. We've been conditioned our whole life on certain ideas and fad diets and this and that, that if you just dehypnotize yourself to what you've always thought you knew and try something different, it's amazing the results that you're going to get from it.
Yeah, for sure. And I have like firsthand experience with that type of stuff because I had some I've had medical problems throughout the years, and last year I basically had to change my whole mindset and start eating differently than I ever have. But it turned out great for me because my medical problems, I have seizures and I've been able to even those
Okay.
out. And
Good.
I actually lost a lot of weight by changing the way I eat. And I think it was my body saying, you know what? I've had enough of you putting that much junk in here.
Good
So,
for you. And I imagine for you, it was kind of like this aha moment where something happened unexpectedly that
mhm.
kind of scared you into having to do something different.
Yeah, yeah. I've had seizures since 2009. They kind of left for a while, and then they came back last year, full force. Like I had a cluster of them, and I think my mind, and I have during that time I had 3 young kids. I have 3 young kids, so I was like, I want to be here longer. I need to. I'm a provider, like I'm a father, and
Mhm.
so that was that moment. I was like, something has to change, and so I did it. So I'm here today, and that's part of what started this podcast is because I was in that mindset finally too. Like I've always had the idea, but I felt like I wasn't the right mindset because I didn't want to sit and hear people's stories when I was going through all this stuff myself and
Right.
didn't think I was in the right place.
No, and good for you. Like, I can't even imagine, like, how scary that is, especially because I don't have kids, but I would imagine just being by yourself and having something like that happen is traumatizing in and of itself. The idea that, like, you have a wife and kids and people who are dependent on you as
Hmm.
dad and, as a provider, I can't imagine the added level of stress that that can add to wanting to find answers and wanting to find a solution.
Yeah. And it took years. It was years, but like, it's like I'm glad I'm here. So you mentioned that, you lost quite a bit of weight and what what was the biggest mindset shift like for you personally?
So for me, I was kind of like overweight my entire life. I was told at 13 that I was fat by a teacher and had to go on a diet. So weight was always an issue my whole life. And by the time I was in my 20s, early 30s, I was over 350 pounds. And, but you still think you're invincible because I can still do things. I was always in pain. You never realize how much pain you're in until you're not in it anymore, which was, in hindsight, but there was a day where I had blood test done, my yearly physical, and the blood test came back with type 2 diabetes, fatty liver, and high cholesterol all in the same shot. And that was my aha moment. And the doctor was telling me she was writing me all these prescriptions. It was like 5 different prescriptions. This one for diabetes, this one for for cholesterol, this one for the fatty liver, and then it was like blood pressure medicine. I'm like, well, why do I need blood pressure medicine? They're like, well, because if you take this medication, then it's going to cause your blood pressure to go up. So you need this medication to counteract it. And I got so overwhelmed. I didn't want to be like this statistic. I was only like 30, maybe 31 at the time. And about 6 months prior to that, my best friend, who was my childhood brother, had passed away unexpectedly. So now, and he was obese too. So watching him die at 27, and here I am getting like this almost like this death wish on a piece of paper scared me enough. And I asked the doctor, I said, look, what if I just lost the weight? Like, I know that I've done the fad diets and everything like that, but I've never had a test like this before. What if I do everything I need to do and I lose the weight? And she was like, well, even if you lost all the weight at this point, you're going to have diabetes forever. And I don't know why. It just bugged the crap out of me. She didn't know me, she didn't know my history. And so I walked out. She gave me the prescription. I told my husband, give me 6 months because the diabetes wasn't high enough that it was an overall risk. I said, give me 6 months. If in 6 months I can't reverse this crap on my own, I will succumb to the medication. I will be that statistic. I will do what I need to do. But you give me 6 months. And he goes, if you know what you're doing, do it. And I did. For 6 months, I cut everything out of my diet. I started walking every single day. The first month, you lost 20 pounds, which is a lot of water weight, and you're motivated. The second month, I didn't lose anything. But I had a mission to prove that doctor wrong. That's all I cared about. I didn't care about the weight anymore. I just wanted to prove her wrong. And I stayed consistent for 6 months. And 6 months later, I got tested again, and there was no more diabetes, and there was no more fatty liver, and the cholesterol was within normal. And the doctor said, see, this is why you need to take the medication. And I got to be very smug, and I was like, I didn't fill the prescription. And that was the beginning of my personal mindset journey. Is I set my mind onto something, I focus on only that, I visualized the end result, and I did what I need to do. The problem is after 6 months, I only lost that 20 pounds the first month, and then nothing came off. So it wasn't for a lack of trying. I had doctors giving me medications for weight loss. I had like different programs and stuff. And so that's when I looked into finally bariatric surgery in 2014. And so I had a gastric sleeve 11 years ago, and it's changed my life ever since.
I love that I just love stories when people go against like their doctors for some reason. Like it just
I don't
is,
usually encourage it. Listen to your
no,
doctor,
no,
but
no, no. I agree there. I didn't mean that way. Like,
yeah, yeah.
because the same thing happened. Well, kind of like I got blood tests. I was pre-diabetic. My liver, I had a fatty liver and all this other stuff. But I actually started going to a functional medicine doctor,
Hmm.
and they put me on supplements. And that's when I started seeing some of these big changes. And it's,
Game changer.
yeah. And it's like, I can't believe it. Like,
Mm.
and it's like, and before that's when the mindset kind of changes. Like, I had this kind of idea of like medicine, like the medical docters that had to shift because before I didn't believe in kind of the functional medicine side of stuff.
Right.
I found it kind of hooey. And, there may be people listening that still do. And that's totally fine.
And I'm one of those people, I am not anti-medication. I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer, you need
Yep.
medication, then you take the
You take it.
medication.
Yeah, exactly.
For me personally, I find that oftentimes medication is used to mask a problem, whereas I would like to know if there's a way I can fix the problem. I would like to fix the problem first, and if I can't because there's a biological reason or there's a chemical reason that is beyond what I can physically capably do myself, then it's like a safety net. There are medications out there that can help, but I've done it now with the weight loss journey. I've done it on the mental health journey. I've been able to find ways for me personally to be able to get either off medications or to avoid medications by doing, and sometimes it's harder, to get into the root of the issues and stuff, but for me it's important
Hmm.
enough to try to uproot it, to have it never come back again, than to just constantly mask it and never know how much pain you're truly in. But that's just me.
No, yeah, I agree. And from my side, like it comes from, I was on a bunch of anti-seizure medication and I started hallucinating. It's having very, very bad side effects. So the doctors told me, well, you're crazy. You need to go see a psychiatrist. And so I got evaluated and they're like, you might have anxiety, but you're not, the hallucinations, they're coming from the medication you're on. So I tapered without the doctor's permission. I tapered myself off, went back to him and said, no, like everything's fine, but I cannot take this medicine. So I tried a couple different things and some of them like made me like really stupid. Like
Mhm.
I couldn't get through a full sentence without slurring my speech or stumbling over my words. So I was like, you know what? Fine. And then that's where my like I said, like you said, I'm not anti-medication,
Right.
but I'll take stuff here and there. But it's like I found things that worked for me. So
And yeah, and I also hate that, doctors who don't know you that well, I feel like we often make a blanketed statements based on patterns or based on, the average person, but I had a nervous breakdown many, many years ago, long before my weight loss no, after my weight loss journey, and they had put me on medication because I knew at that point I had no other option. I could not function on a daily basis. And it worked, but again, when I got to a place where I was in a good place, I wanted to get to the root of it. I didn't wanna live like this the rest of my life, and I would ask the doctors, "What can I do to wean off of it?" And they would tell me, "Well, if you get off the medication, you're gonna have panic attacks for the rest of your life." And just like that other doctor, I got very, very stubborn, and I'm like, "Let me prove you wrong." So then I started going to therapy. I started working on my issues. I knew what had caused my situation. It was a situational occurrence. It wasn't a chemical thing. And over time, and I kept like one or two pills in my purse. I kept it in my purse for years. It was like this added security blanket. But every time I felt like I was starting to get nervous or starting to get anxious, I knew that it was in there if I needed to. But what can I do in the moment now on my own? And if I can't handle it, I knew I had something to fall back on. So, like I said, I'm not anti medication, but since then, I've never had to take that pill ever since.
I love it. I think that's fantastic. I'm totally a big believer in taking medication to get out of those ruts
Mhm.
and to push through stuff. So, what would you say, like, throughout your journey, what roadblocks were the hardest for you to remove?
I think a lot of it the hardest thing for me was when it came to relationships in general, friendships, family, marriages, and stuff. I realized that when you are not happy with yourself, your relationships are never gonna be healthy, and so one of the things when I was going through my weight loss journey, I had to really look deep inside myself and kind of own up who I was, the good and the bad, and understand, like, I don't know about you, I was a people pleaser. I was a yes person, even if I didn't wanna do it, or if I didn't do it, they were gonna be upset. If I didn't respond to that phone call right away, they were gonna be upset. And I think the biggest transformation for me was learning how to set boundaries and learning to decide, I'm numero uno. In Sheri's world, Sheri's numero uno. Everybody else is secondary. And it it still feels like it's a very selfish thing to do, but I feel like it's something that's very necessary for us. We have to put ourselves first. When they talk about filling people's cups or pouring from an empty glass, like, it's so true. It took a long time to get to a point where you learn to tell people no and you learn to set your boundaries. And during that process, there are people who will leave your life. And it's a hard pill to swallow, but then you have to look at how valuable what were those relationships if they were only around because they were getting something from it and they were not contributing as much, or anybody who doesn't support you wanting to be the best version of yourself doesn't have your best interests at heart, they're probably not your people. And it's been hard, I've had family members and friends and stuff over the years that you kind of have to just sever the tie with or just kinda cut the string on, but once you do, you feel like a huge weight has been lifted, and then the more that you do that, the more you attract the right kind of people who are gonna be supportive, who are gonna walk alongside you and not try to step on you to get to the top or not
Mhm.
try to use you for their own benefit, and you kinda start being more selective on the kind of people you want in your immediate surroundings.
Yeah, I love that because I think that's important. Like,
Mhm.
it's setting boundaries, like you said, it's very hard. And I have a quick story that totally resonates with that. So I have this friend. I was a roommate. He's my college roommate, and I kept in touch with him. I mean, that was 20 years ago now, but I'll text him here and there. I don't see him that often. But anyways, it'd been a couple years since we'd spoke, so I texted him. It was like, "Oh, how are you doing?" Like being roommates back in the day, we used to poke fun of each other all the time, and which was fine back then. But now, like, I was in a stage of my life where I couldn't take it. He brought up a lot of this past stuff. This was all through text. He sent me this long text, like making fun of me. So I pulled out my phone. And this is before, like, I was going to major therapy and actually knew what setting boundaries was like. But I look back and I was like, this is totally me setting a boundary. So I texted him back and I said, dude, like, I haven't talked to you in years. I was trying to reach out, see how things were going, but I can't have this. So I can no longer talk to you. I'm sorry. And I ended the conversation. He texted me back a month after that. He apologized and said, sorry, I'll never behave like that again. Like, we are better friends than that. And it's been cool ever since. And it's because I
'Cause you said
set
something.
that boundary. Yeah.
You have to. It's interesting, and one thing that we have to realize too, like, whenever you're on your own personal journey and the more you start elevating yourself, we have to remember that not everybody's on the same playing field or on the same
Hmm.
level of their journey as us, and so sometimes people are gonna fall to the wayside, and it's not because you're better than them in any way, shape, or form. It's just some people will look at your success and either make it about themselves as like an inferior or an insecurity thing, like, oh, she's lost 150 pounds, I can't lose 5 pounds, and then they start creating this different vision of you, based on it's a reflection of them as a person. Or sometimes people will be inspired by the changes that you're making and they want to walk up at the same level as you, and those are the people you want. But if you had never said anything, he would have continued to constantly do it to the point where either you would have popped off or you would have completely ended it or said something that you regretted because you're afraid to speak up because you're afraid if I speak up, then he's going to make fun of me more. Or he's
Mm-hmm.
going to, get mad at me or not be my friend. Well, is he really your friend if he's constantly putting you down? Or is it because you're allowing it? And if you're not saying it, he doesn't know not to do it. Sometimes they don't realize that what they're saying or doing is hurtful because it's never been brought to their attention. So if nothing's being said, it's a free pass. They keep doing it. I've been made fun of my entire life, but I also realized I made fun of myself as a defense mechanism for so many years that I gave people permission to put me down or to say, hurtful things. Do I have anyone to blame? No. I allowed that to happen. I never said anything about it. Or I would beat them to the punch by and making it worse. But the minute you speak up, two things could have happened. He learned that, okay, maybe he doesn't like it when I do that. You have a conversation about it, or he gets defensive and then he doesn't talk to you ever again.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I can remember that, and it's probably been at least 5 years ago, maybe longer, that happened. And I still contact him to this day, but it's like I feel like since I said that, our relationship actually improved, and now we're like more open with each other about what we're going through.
I love that.
So, how do you today like stay grounded when through unexpected obstacles that appear?
Some days are a lot easier, a lot harder than others, I will say. It's just like we can all relate. I love writing. I'm very big on journaling and writing out your feelings and getting out of you. I was somebody my whole life that always held everything in and like you just kept pushing it, pushing it, pushing it. Whereas now, when I'm going through these obstacles, I take the time to acknowledge the roadblock that I'm facing. Just acknowledging I'm in a really crappy situation right now. And sometimes I have to feel the feels. Sometimes you have to cry about it, you have to get angry about it, but you don't want to live there. That's the important thing is like so many times when crap, I don't know if you can curse. I'm trying not to curse. When stuff happens, it's very easy to live in the suck and to let it completely consume you. So one, I acknowledge that it sucks. I'm allowing myself, I was never a crier my entire life. I was always the tough cookie, but I'm allowing myself to feel the feelings. And then from there, I write it out. I write out what I'm frustrated by. I write out, what I would like to see happen. Sometimes I'll try to manifest. I do a lot of meditation CDs, just ways to kind of help me get grounded. I find that working out or doing any kind of workouts or going for a walk is very, very good for mental health. It just naturally raises, your hormones in a good place. I will, like I said, I'll meditate. Sometimes what I've been doing lately is every single day, I'll write down a worry that I have and then I rip it up. So I'm really worried that such and such is not going to come to fruition. And then I write it up. Or I'm really worried that I'm not going to lose the few pounds of regain that I have. And then I rip it up. And it's kind of like acknowledging it's okay to have fear. It's okay to be scared, but we're ripping it up so that we're releasing it out into the world. It's not going to live in this negative space in our body. And then I'll replace it and I'll write something I'm grateful for that day. I'm grateful that I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful that I have money in the bank. I'm grateful that I have somebody that I can call at 3 o'clock in the morning if I'm having a rough time. And I just try to, all of these negative feelings that you have, you throw it out into the universe and then you replace it with something good to help keep you more appreciative of what we have now in the moment.
Absolutely love it. And you mentioned, writing there and how you've always written stuff. So, and you've written a few books. So after becoming an author, uh, and sharing your story, what has surprised you the most?
Healing it is. When you write your own story, when we've all had stuff happen in our past, but there's something about writing about your past from your current place. It kind of just brings like this different perspective and reflection on how far you've come. So the first book that I wrote was Unzipped, which was all about my weight loss journey. And going back and reliving a lot of those moments and writing it from a place where I wasn't that person anymore and realizing how it's shaped the your past shapes who you are today. It doesn't define who you are today, but it does help shape, the person that you become. And so for me, I found it to be kind of like the biggest, I say like the freest version of therapy that I've ever had is to tell my story.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And you have 2 books?
Yeah, I currently have 2 books. The first book, Unzipped, is about my weight loss journey dealing with obesity and in overcoming that. The second book is called Blindsided, and it's just a lot of stories of every time in my life that I've been blindsided by something and how I either found humor or how I found a way to adapt around it, and how even a lot of those blindsides later on in life served a purpose. And sometimes you don't realize, I say it all the time, everything's for a reason. Whether we understand the why yet, it all happens for a reason.
I am a firm believer in that.
Mhm.
And I totally believe it, like, 110%, like, everything is for a reason.
It is. Like I said, whether you're religious or spiritual or none of the above, I've had too many instances in my life where if things did not play out the way that it played out back then, it would not have come to fruition the way that it needed to right now.
Yeah, and I can say the same thing about myself, and it's like, I even look back because I work in the tech industry, and I was laid off 3 times in 7 years, and each time I was laid off, like, it was like a hit to my ego, like, it was
Mhm.
a hit to my self-esteem and everything, but it's like every time that I found a new job, it was just a little bit better than the last one, like the
Mhm.
pay and everything. So I look back and I was like, you know, there was a reason why I got laid off because I'm actually bettering myself.
Absolutely. I love that.
So for someone listening that feels stuck, ashamed, overwhelmed, what's the first piece of advice that you would give them?
You are not alone. Like, first and foremost, whatever thoughts are going through your head, those thoughts have been in somebody else's head before you. They'll be in somebody else's head after you. The hardest part when you're dealing with going through hard times, or people who've dealt with depression, you feel like nobody gets it. You feel like that you're truly alone. I've been there. I've deleted the contacts in my phone. I've sat on the grass at 5 o'clock in the morning with a certain special hotline waiting to get some kind of assistance. You feel that there's nobody there. But I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, there is always somebody there for you to talk to, and you're not alone in whatever you're going through. And when you kind of remove the fear of being truly alone in it, it becomes slightly easier to help navigate the next steps after that.
Because I remember being in that, I actually just overcame a depressive mode, like probably within the last month. I was in a kind of a rut for about 2 or 3 months, and it took me a while to get out of it. But it's like once you kind of remove that barrier and actually let people in to help you and admit that you need the help, that's when you're going to see
The hardest
and
part is
feel like
admitting Yeah, the hardest part is
it.
admitting that you have a problem. I think that
Hmm.
when you're dealing with depression, and obviously we're not professionals, in that regard, but it's been in my experience in having dealt with depression, the best way to get over depression is to acknowledge it. Say it to I'm depressed right now. I'm having a really effing hard time right now. And just acknowledge, stop trying to fight it. Stop trying to play it cool with your friends and family, or posting on social media, everything is good, even though you're dying inside. Own where you are right now. And once you can own it, you feel a sense of relief because you're saying it. It's like when you have an addiction, anybody who's had food or drugs or alcohol or anything, the moment you admit that you have a problem, that you have an issue, is the hardest part. After that, it's not always a cakewalk, but it gets a little bit easier to get to the next phase. So people who are struggling, own your feelings. Say it out loud, talk to yourself, write it down. Just stop kidding yourself and just say, I have a problem. And then start looking into resources on how to get to the other side of it.
And I can attest to that because that's when I actually admitted that I had a problem and that I was going through all this stuff. That's when I saw the biggest change in myself.
Hmm.
And it seems like the change just never stops now. Like it always something. I mean, I'll still kind of fall back into some old ways because I'm still working through stuff, but
Of
the
course.
change is there.
Yeah, of course. When you're in a negative headspace, you find the negative in everything. Like, "Oh, your
Uh-huh.
coffee wasn't." Of course my coffee wasn't warm enough because nothing I can't have anything good. And you just start finding the negative in everything, but instead, like, "Hey, I had money to buy myself a cup of coffee today," you know? Like, I have a car that I was able to drive to a drive-through. There are people who don't have, and, like, once you start putting things into perspective and trying to find a glimmer of something positive in all of this. And maybe I'm skewed because I've always been someone that whenever the crap has hit the fan really bad, the universe always finds a way to put humor into it. Like, and this is a serious topic, but I was on the hotline on a live chat waiting for my turn to have somebody to talk to. And when it was my turn, my phone froze. And I would look down and I'm like, and I'm, like, trying to touch the phone and nothing worked, and I'm like, "The one time that you need somebody to help you and there's nobody there," I literally laughed out loud because of course, the one time that I decide to turn to this hotline and it doesn't even freaking work for me, of course it's not gonna happen for me, and then I started laughing, and I was like, "If I can laugh in this moment, I'm gonna be okay." I might not know how, I'm gonna be okay. I just know in my heart I'm gonna be okay. And it's always my whole life has been like that. It's like whenever something crappy happens, something funny in my world happens, and I'm just like, yeah, that make
Yeah, and I'm the same way. And I think humor is like one of the best things ever. But
absolutely
I'm the type of person that I always laugh at like the most inappropriate times.
the same way.
And it's like y- this is see, I'm trying to think of how to word it without me sounding like absolutely terrible. My wife will get after me for something or we'll have a little disagreement or whatever. And instead of trying to figure it out, I kind of start laughing and get a smile on my face. And sometimes it's like a nervous thing,
Mhm.
but my wife absolutely hates it. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just me trying to get through the moment. Like,
Yeah. It's
and
my
it's
way
not
of
even,
dealing.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't like when things happen, like I say it's a dark sense of humor, and you
Hmm.
have to know your audience.
Yeah. And I always make the joke that, like, if I was ever put up on the stand for a crime, I'd probably be found guilty because I would start smiling and smirking. So they'd automatically say, like, he's guilty.
Oh, I'm a terrible liar. I get really uncomfortable and then I start, like, giggling. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even that. Like, it's more like somebody calling something out or me getting like nervous. Like, I have this little smirk and I know that I'm doing it, but I can't help
Listen, I'm a firm believer, like, just be you, you know?
it.
And people need to accept you exactly as you are.
I agree. Sometimes I feel like I've gone through life, and sometimes that's easier said for some people than done.
Agree. I've learned in life that I no longer have expectations on people because, like, I can expect someone to stop doing certain traits or not to be a certain way, but then I'm
Mhm,
gonna keep getting disappointed. I can't change other people. They have to change themselves. So I've learned to pick and choose my battles. And if it gets to a point where it's just too much for me to handle for my own personal peace, then I can walk away. But I've learned to accept
mhm.
people exactly as they are, quirks and
Yeah,
all.
that's awesome. I love that, and I think that's something that I need to for the most part, I do, but there's sometimes that, like, certain quirks or whatever, like, really bother me, and I just can't get over them. I can't think of any examples, but there
So
are some
usually,
that I'm like,
and it depends on the person because, like I said, you know your audience, you know how people are going to respond or not. I'm learning in my older age to confront and be on. I have a right to be honest with you. If I care about you, if I love you as a friend or a family or whatever, I owe it to you to be honest with how I'm feeling. So if I'm feeling a certain way about something, there's ways you can approach it without being a jerk about it, but I've
mhm,
learned to be more vocal about it. And if you truly care about me, then you're going to care about my feelings too. And other than that, if it's something that I can't overlook, like I said, I have no problem walking away from it. But sometimes people don't realize those quirks. They don't realize that it bothers you because you don't say.
exactly. So I just have a few more things here. This is awesome. I feel like I could keep talking to you. There's so many different ways we could go.
I love this. I'm having a great time.
So, what's one belief that you see people often carry that you just love to dig in and help them unlearn?
that they can't do it, whatever it is. The biggest thing that I hear often is they can't do something, whether it's in a professional setting or in a relationship or in their weight loss journey or just in like a general thing or whatever. I love when people say, I can't do it. I was like, why? Why can't you do it? And then we start peeling back the layers.
Yeah. And that's fantastic because it's like I just automatically think back to my therapy experience. It's like it's one of the things I had to unlearn was, well, I can't do that. I can't do this. No, you can. You're just not putting your mind to it.
Right. Now, some things people can be sarcastic. If it defies the laws of physics, then maybe likely. But even then, I'm like, what? Maybe there's a way. Maybe we don't know the way yet, but maybe there's still a way. Like I'm still gonna combat it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. So you've good to go back to, MOBA stuff here. So you've been living MOBA for years. What keeps you motivated to continue evolving?
Honestly, I think it's the people. I think it's the people that I meet. Like I said, it started with a single T-shirt, and then it got to getting messages from people. Like I've had people from all around the world. I've had clients in Italy and Australia and Canada. It's getting messages that tell me that when they're having a rough day, or if they're about to do something really hard, they put on their MOBA hat or they put on their MOBA shirt, and it's what it represents. They're like, I beasted it because I wore MOBA today, and I've had people send me photos of them doing 10Ks or 5Ks or running for the first time, and they wear their MOBA gear. It's not about, yeah, the shirts are nice quality. Do a lot of tri blends. I don't believe in cheap, products, but it's more than the shirt. It's what it represents. It represents the belief that you can do this. And with MOBA, like last year, we did a Tough Mudder in St. Louis, Missouri, in I think it was September of no, April of last year, where we had like 10 or 15 people that were all formerly obese. Some were at one point over 500 pounds. And we did 10 miles together in mud, in obstacles, and watching people in real time conquer something that they never dreamed ever possible. That we just did it again this year. We just did our second Tough Mudder in Nashville in October. And it was a whole new slew of people who had never done it before, who were terrified, and watching people accomplish something that was impossible. Something and like there was people that I've met that their goal was to get a driver's license as an adult. They hadn't gotten one yet and they were terrified of the process, and they would wear their MOBA shirt and then they went out and got their driver's license. Or people that had like health scares that were told that, kind of like with you and me, that they were going to have to succumb to this for the rest of their life, and then was able to overcome that. And so for me, it's far more than what the T-shirt is. Yes, I would love to make sales and, push my product out into the world. It's more of like the people who have embraced the movement. That's what keeps me going every day.
That's fantastic. It's like most of the time it only takes a few of those people to keep things pushing forward. Like you're like, oh yes, that's a huge win for me.
Hmm. And they're turning around and inspiring other people just by embracing a mindset that they can overcome anything that they set their mind to.
So what would you say is the biggest stigma when it comes to mental health?
That it's weak to seek help. I think, and in fairness, I think that I looked at it that way for a long time. Like I grew up having to figure everything out myself, and I didn't talk to anybody, and I kept everything in, and like, oh, just suck it up and keep going. And it gets to a point where you can push it down as much as you want. Your body's going to make it come out of you at some point, whether you're ready for it or not.
Mhm.
And I think people take the term mental health as like this negative connotation. Mental health does not necessarily just mean depression or anxiety or bipolar or some clinical. Mental health is also a positive mindset. It's also positive thoughts. It's mental health, having a good mental health, having a negative mental health. But I think the term has been synonymous with something negative for so long that people are afraid to admit that they're feeling off. It's normal.
Yeah, that's great because I think it's important to point out the positive side of mental health. Like you
Mhm.
said, we don't do that a lot. So that's very well said. So where can people find you?
So my website is mobamentality.com. That's where you can find the apparel and you can find a link to the community. We have a community on Discord that people join. I'm on TikTok. I'm moba.sheri. I think the same on Instagram. I think those are the three most main places that you can always find me. Like my website has contact information. You can reach out to me. You can always send me a message.
Awesome. And the last thing is we've discussed quite a few topics here tonight. Is there anything that you'd like to bring up that we did not cover?
Mm. The biggest piece of advice that I haven't yet put it on a shirt, but I'm going to put on a shirt is that we always have two choices. You will always have two choices in life. I don't know. Can you curse on here? I don't know if you can curse. But
Nope,
be
you're fine.
okay. Bitch and complain or adapt and change. We're always going to have an option no matter what we are being faced with. And like I said, the one thing that we are guaranteed in life is change, whether we want it or not. How we navigate through that determines our mindset and determines our character.
Awesome. Love it. Sheri, thank you for spending an hour with me and coming on and being a badass.
Well, thank you for having me.
I've really enjoyed the conversation. This is all great. Stories like yours, the reason that I keep going. It's like I also get an added thing where it's almost like a free therapy session for me. So thank
Whatever I
you.
can do to help. And you have my contact information. You can always reach out to me anytime as well. And if you ever want me to come back, I'll just invite myself back. That's fine.
That sounds great. I love people who want to come back. It makes me feel like I'm doing something right. So
I love that. Well, you're a very welcoming host. And like I said, I love the flow of conversation and not feeling so like cut and dry.
awesome. And thank you to all those that have been listening. If you resonated with this episode, please share it. You can find us on all major podcast platforms. Thanks again. Until next time.